You know the story, right? It plays out in towns and cities all over the world. A giant new superstore opens its doors, and almost overnight, that small, family-run shop, the one that's been on the corner for generations, is suddenly fighting for its life. It feels like this classic David versus Goliath battle, and our anger, our blame, it almost always points in one direction, right at the big corporation.
So let's just get right into it. The common view, the one we all kind of feel in our gut, is that big business is the enemy, and we have to fight back. But what if that's not the whole story? What if the real cause of all this is actually way closer to home? Today, we're going to explore a perspective that flips this whole idea on its head, and it suggests the solution isn't about fighting out there, but about looking in here.
And look, let's be real, the anger is completely understandable. I mean, when your livelihood is on the line, it's just a natural human instinct to find a target for all that frustration. The blame, it doesn't just feel justified, it feels necessary. It's step one in fighting back, isn't it?
Well, here's the first big twist. According to the source material we're looking at, that very impulse to blame and to fight is actually a trap. It kicks off this vicious cycle that doesn't get you a win. It just leads to even deeper hardship. You can see the cycle laid out right here. First, the big corporation shows up. Then, the community gets into protest and blame mode. But think about what that takes. It just eats up a ton of resources. Your time, your money, your emotional energy. And what's the result? Well, while everyone's busy fighting this battle, they're not adapting. They're not innovating. They just fall further and further behind.
The source really doesn't pull any punches here. It says, flat out, you will experience hardship once more. The argument is that this whole blame game doesn't just fail to fix the problem, it pretty much guarantees you're going to face the same crisis all over again. It's a losing strategy right from the start.
Okay, so this is the crucial turning point. If fighting the corporation is a trap, and if they are the ultimate cause of this big economic shift, then what is? This is where the analysis takes this really fascinating and, honestly, pretty uncomfortable turn, as we start to look for who's really designing this change. So let's just ask the question directly. If these giant corporations aren't the real root cause of all this displacement, then who is the one designing this whole takeover? I mean, who are the masterminds creating the strategies that are wiping out these small businesses? The answer, according to this perspective, is pretty shocking. It's our own children. Now, let's be super clear about what this means. The source uses this term, the intellectuals, to talk about the best and brightest. You know, the highly educated young people who graduate from the top universities and land those amazing jobs at major corporations. They're the ones dreaming up the brilliant marketing plans, the super efficient supply chains, and the growth strategies. They are our kids. And what this reveals is something the source calls a societal tragedy. It's a painful cycle that's playing out between the generations. See, it all starts with the parents. For 20, 30, even 40 years, they run these little shops. They work tirelessly, they pour every ounce of profit and energy into one single goal, giving their children the absolute best education so they can have a better life. The source even has this incredibly powerful phrase for it, describing the children as the people who took our blood and sweat. It just perfectly captures the depth of that sacrifice. It wasn't just money, you know? It was their life force, all invested in their kids' futures. And here is the gut-wrenching irony. Those very same children, armed with that world-class education that their parents sacrifice everything for, they become the strategic architects at those big corporations. And they're so good at their jobs, so innovative, that they design the very systems that make their parents' whole way of life obsolete. It's a success story that accidentally eats its own past. So, if that's the problem, this tragic, unintentional cycle, what's the solution? Blaming our kids is just as pointless as blaming the corporation. The argument here is that the only way forward is to completely reframe the situation, to shift your mindset from crisis to opportunity. This really lays out the two paths you can take. The path of blame, well, that just leads to stagnation and, like we saw, repeated hardship. But the other path, the path of introspection, of looking inward and really analyzing the situation without all the anger, that's what can spark new ideas and lead you to a totally new way forward. And this might be the most powerful idea in this whole thing. The crisis, the fact that you might lose the shop, is reframed. It's not the end of your livelihood. It's an opportunity to escape what the source calls a prison. I mean, think about it. After decades of doing the same thing every single day, Maybe this disruption is the chance to finally ask yourself, what do I really want to do now? So, what are the actual steps? Well, first, you have to stop the blame cycle. Just stop. Second, you quietly observe. You try to understand the reality of what's happening. And third, you start searching for the opportunity that's hiding inside this crisis. The source is pretty confident that if you do that, a new path, a new idea, it'll just naturally start to show itself. Ultimately, the whole message is one of incredible personal power. Look, the world changes, economies shift, and corporations are going to do what they do. But we always have an opportunity. The choice is ours. Are we going to slam the door shut with anger and blame, or are we going to open it and see what's on the other side? And that really leaves us with a final question to think about. When a door closes in our own life, in a job, a relationship, whatever, do we see it as just this big, solid wall that stopped us dead in our tracks? Or do we see it as the beginning of something totally new? The perspective we choose, well, it seems like that makes all the difference in the world.